Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss fossil fuels. So we've mentioned fossil fuels before, but we've never really gone into a very good in-depth explanation of what they are or where they come from. So essentially in this video that's what we're going to try to accomplish. So let's start off at the very beginning of this process. So this is photosynthesis. So I'm sure you've heard of this before, but just in case it's a little foggy, let's review. So essentially what happens is we have plants and they take energy that comes in from the sun and they react that with carbon dioxide and water in order to produce glucose. So let's write out a chemical equation for this. So we're going to start off by writing energy. This energy comes from the sun, and what they do is they take that energy and interact it with carbon dioxide plus water, and they are able to do this using something called chlorophyll. And what they can do is convert these reactants into the product glucose, so C6H12O6, and they also do this by releasing oxygen. So if we wanted to write out a proper equation, we would balance this by putting sixes in front of the carbon dioxide, water, and oxygen. All right, so this is the process of photosynthesis. And so essentially what they do is they make glucose or a source of food for themselves. But we know that because glucose is actually where we get our source of fuel. This is the beginning stages of a fossil fuel. So what happens in this process is when a plant dies, okay, so now we're going immediately to death, how sad. When it dies, it starts to decay. Okay, and so in this process of decaying or decomposition, the glucose molecule essentially reverts all the way back through a couple different steps, and I don't expect you to know this, reverts back to carbon dioxide and water. And so it releases the carbon dioxide and water back into our atmosphere. But sometimes, due to whatever situation it's at, based on the environment, the time, where this plant is located, sometimes it is not able to go through full decomposition. And so in these cases, we have something called partial decay, but I actually like to call it partial decomposition. It just sounds more technical, more accurate, to be honest. So let's look at partial decomposition. So this is where we have something like a plant. So this is going to be my plant. And essentially what happens is it starts to decay. It's died and it's slowly starting to decay. But what happens is, let's say maybe a volcano erupted right near it, or maybe there was a landslide or something, but somehow this leaf or whatever it is starts getting covered in layers of sediment. So this stuff right here is just layers of sediment. And when I say that, I really am just talking about maybe mud or rocks. It really doesn't take much, but it needs to be covered. And the main reason why it's covered is because this process needs oxygen in order for it to decompose. And so when it gets covered in these layers of sediment, the oxygen can no longer access that plant or leaf or whatever it is. And so a new process happens. It doesn't fully decompose. And essentially what happens is, because this thing is layered under all these things of sediment and the rocks and the mud, we start to see an increase of temperature and an increase in pressure. And when we have an increase of temperature and an increase of pressure, and under a lot of steps and in hundreds of millions of years, okay? So we had to have a lot of things happen here. We had to have a plant die, we had to give it blocked from oxygen, then it had to be covered enough so that the pressure increased and the temperature increased. Then we had to wait for hundreds of millions of years. And when all of that happens, we get one fossil fuel. And now when we talk about these fossil fuels, there are three different properties I like to refer to as, or three different sections of fossil fuels. We typically talk about coal, we talk about petroleum, and we talk about natural gas. So three different stages, or maybe even using the word phases. So let's see what you understand from this right now. What word would you use to describe a liquid fossil fuel? Go. All right, did you say petroleum? If you said petroleum, then you are absolutely correct. Sometimes we refer to this as oil, but it's definitely petroleum is our liquid phase of our fossil fuel. So that is the exact word I expect you to know. Now, what if I had said solid? What would you have said? Did you get an answer? Hopefully you said coal. And then if I had said gas, I'm not going to make you do it. Hopefully you would come up with the term natural gas. We kind of gave it away with the word gas. So hopefully that makes sense. This is our quick review of what fossil fuels are. There's so much more information about this because it is such a complex process. So if you want to know more, please contact me or just look it up. You can find it. Have a good week, guys.